Which brings us to the next team. And again, I have been heavily, heavily critical of this team, and I'm not going to apologize because they're playing like shit, over the last
This
few.
makes us happy as Raptors fans.
It makes me very, very happy. But I do have to acknowledge that the Boston Celtics are among the teams pursuing a championship this season. There's no denying this has been a lackluster year for the Boston Celtics. Especially this last stretch of games. Like, they fell below 500. They just got blown out by the Atlanta Hawks today. And
after blowing a 24-point lead against New Orleans.
After blowing a 24-point lead. So Boston is, in a lot of trouble as far as the standings are concerned. But there's no denying they have great talent and they have a very good coach. I mean, they're 15th in offensive rating, 14th in defensive rating. So, again, it's not really eye-popping, but again, you do have to factor in that Marcus Smart is also injured. So that also skews the numbers in a different way. But this year, you've seen Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been absolutely fantastic. They've been absolute studs this season. They've, really deserved and earned their All-Star nominations this year. And they're only getting better, which is the scary part. Like, they're 23, 24 years old, respectively. Maybe 25 for Jaylen Brown. So
something like that.
Super young players, man, and they're only getting better. So that Boston has them. That Brad Stevens has shown he's had a great system, that he utilizes his wings to be able to guard multiple positions. And for the most part, it works very, very well. Like, as Raptor fans, we've seen it firsthand how frustratingly good the Celtics are defensively, just based on the fact that they can switch anything. They can switch Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, then Jason Tatum. They have that, that core of guys that they can use in multiple different scenarios. And especially like when Marcus Smart is healthy, the Celtics have an amazing, amazing defense with Tatum and Brown, and it makes them a very strong and capable defense. Over the last, few seasons, you've seen them in defensive ratings. Like, last season, they were 4th in defensive rating. The year before that, they were 7th. The year before that, they were 1st. So you can kind of see the Celtics have always been a very, very good defensive club. And, that's been a staple for them. But they also get good production from their decent production out of their role players. They get the most out of, guys who they find, whether or not, like, if it's a Peyton Pritchard or if it's in their case, a Grant Williams, a Robert Williams, Time Lord. So, Boston always, or Semi Ojeleye. So Boston always finds a way to get some decent production from their role players. The problem, though, with the Celtics is, can they keep up offensively with teams like, Milwaukee and Brooklyn? Because they can hold their own defensively. I don't see Boston having trouble on that side of the ball, especially when Marcus Smart gets back. But when they are forced to have their role players win games, they aren't really able to keep up. And what I mean is that when we get to playoff basketball, you highly expect Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum to be double teamed at any chance. Then Kemba Walker has struggled this season, so we don't know how good he's going to be. And I don't think he's going to be able to fix it because I think he's playing through an injury, and I don't see his production improving this year. So that's another wasted option. So now you're forcing guys like Marcus Smart, you're forcing guys like Robert Williams, Grant Williams, Semi Ojeleye. You're forcing these guys to step up and beat you. And, it depends on the night. Some nights Semi Ojeleye just catches fire and can't miss a 3 for whatever reason. And other nights he's absolutely garbage. And same thing you can say with Grant Williams, Robert Williams, Peyton Pritchard. So that's the major problem. And, this season, they don't have as good as depth as they had in previous seasons. In particular, they don't have Gordon Hayward anymore, who was, again, I think a lot of Boston fans really, really undersold his impact for them, because you lost him now, and you can see how well he's playing for Charlotte. And now you don't even have Terry Rozier anymore, who, again, you lost him to Charlotte. Wow, you gave up a lot of guys to Charlotte. But you can see you gave up on some of these guys, and you don't have the depth you used to do. So are you able to keep up? And that's kind of where I'm at with Boston. I think for me, where my verdict stands is I have to classify them as a pretender, just because they're just missing that extra piece, that extra offensive weapon that can truly take them to that next level.
Yeah, I think you touched upon it. They've Brad Stevens has managed to get as much as he can out of guys like Semi Ojeleye and Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard. Though again, Peyton Pritchard is a rookie, so I'm not gonna really talk about him that much. But guys like Grant Williams, Semi Ojeleye, Daniel Tice, Time Lord. Time Lord's been pretty decent as well throughout the season. But, he's been able to get some production out of those guys. The problem is in playoffs, when role players are expected to step up even further, how much production are you going to be able to get from them, right? Those guys are not the most talented guys in the world. They've gone to the point where they are because of, playing gritty, hardworking basketball. But we know you need some talent on your team. You need some depth. And that's what's really lacking for the Boston Celtics right now, especially when you have your heart and soul of the team and Marcus Smart missing games, right? Now, do we know Marcus Smart's a very impactful player for the Boston Celtics? Yes. I don't think anybody expected him to be this impactful for the Boston Celtics, or maybe he's just not that impactful for the Celtics. Maybe the Celtics are just stinking it up, right? Maybe he has a great impact, but not to the extent that the Celtics are this bad without him. And, as you talked about, Gordon Hayward is not there anymore. You don't have a bench piece like Terry Rozier, Marcus Morris anymore.
Yeah,
so you're missing some players that you once had and helped you fill out your depth now that you don't have, which is why they're trying to acquire a guy like, for example, Harrison Barnes, because of the fact that they do need that wing depth, right? When, especially with Kemba Walker struggling, now you're asking Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum to pretty much do everything on offense, right? Because of the fact that you're not really surrounding them with anything else outside of those two. Jeff Teague has been absolutely terrible. He looks like he needs to retire if we're being real. He's been terrible. Tristan Thompson is not going to be asked to carry the offensive load. He's good at what he does, but, that's it. So it's been, I think some of the issues with Boston have kind of been overstated and people panicking, because at the end of the day, this is a very good team. But, they're just Marcus Smart missing. And again, as you talked about, they're kind of just that one more piece away from trying to get back to that spot that they once were. If they're able to get for example, a Harrison Barnes, then I think you could really see this team transform overnight. But right now, they're just in one of those, I think, mid-season funks that a lot of teams go through. And for me, as a championship contender, if you want to be serious about contending for a championship, unfortunately, you just can't go on droughts like this throughout the season. You can maybe lose 2 or 3 games in a row. But to do what the Boston Celtics are doing right now, I can't see
a free fall
out of them. Yeah, it's a free fall right now. And championship caliber teams, we know, don't have free falls like this in the season. The max, again, they'll go on is like a 2-3 game losing streak, right? They don't have free falls like this. And for that reason, I can't see Boston as a serious, true contender. Yeah. Again, they do have championship aspirations, but for me too, I'm going to have to say that they're a pretender.
One more point quickly on the Celtics. I think a lot of people are kind of starting to realize is that Danny Ainge has a lot of blame to be taken for the Boston Celtics, struggles this season. And a lot of it has to do with him being very frugal and not, being opportunistic and taking it, going after players when he knows he has the assets to do it. He missed out on Kawhi. He missed out on Paul George. He missed out on a few other notable names out there that are slipping my head at the moment. So, they were in the sweepstakes for Anthony Davis too. So Boston has had ample of opportunities to go after star level talent. The problem is Danny Ainge has always turned it away or said the price was too high or wasn't willing to give up the assets to do so. And you're kind of seeing it now. It's kind of hurting them in that regard.
Case in point, not getting Miles Turner this summer, and we've seen what Miles Turner has done this year, right? Imagine Miles Turner being that guy for the Boston Celtics, how much better they would be. Yeah. So as you talked about, Danny Ainge, I think, also shares a part of the blame in the Boston Celtics struggles.